So in this video, I'm going to talk about a couple of things that Andrew Tate has said. So I've been questioning, there's things like this going around, which basically just says prepare for the winter. Prepare for the winter with our savings grants open now to everyone on universal credit for a limited time. Up to £40,000 on home grants are available. You know, I'm looking at that thinking, okay, but why do you have to be on universal credit to get that? Like, what is the motivation behind that? I mean, if you're not on universal credit, it means that you're probably, well, poorer, because you're giving all your money away for rent, maybe, because there may be loads of people who are on rent and aren't on universal credit. But you know, I guess to be on universal credit, you have to have a lower salary or something. But I'm confused. Maybe so many people are on universal credit that they, I don't know. I mean, if you're not on universal credit, probably because you own your house. It's probably because you own you earn too much money, and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of it all, and I can see it makes no sense at all. Yes, that song just came to my head. But yeah, I've seen quite a few videos from Andrew Tate about how his explanation for what happens, and I guess his explanation, to sum it up, was that a lot of people were rich and wanted to get wealthy and wanted to earn lots of money, so they thought, right, let's make Europe a really nice place to live, and then we can earn money off some sort of economy or some sort of the economy. You can make money off the economy. And then they got to a point where they started thinking that Europeans were wanting too much, wanting too many benefits, wanting pension, wanting this, wanting that, and getting too demanding. And then they thought, right, let's just crash the economy, and we can make money off people going into poverty because we are taking all their money. You know, that's what's happened in England. There's a very low. Well, people are getting salaries of like 40,000. But if you've got a rent that's 20,000 each year, or a mortgage that's 20,000 each year, technically you're not earning 40,000 or 30,000. You're earning, 20 or 10,000. And if you encounter that you need to have travel to work, you need to be able to travel. So you need £5,000 or £6,000 a year on a car. Plus you might need to buy a car. The tax. There's all these taxes on cars and petrol. Petrol's very expensive. Travel as well takes a long time because of all the people. It takes a very long time to get to one side to the other. So you spend a huge amount of money on petrol and on breakages and road tax and stuff like that. And then you've got food, and then you've got maybe children's looking after, taking them to school or a private school if the public school is bad. Which a lot of them are. So basically everyone's poor. And you think you're rich even if you're earning 40 grand, but because of high mortgages, because of high rent or costs, if you don't have a mortgage, everyone has been forced onto the mortgage system because they don't want to pay high rent. No one wants to pay high rent, so you force yourself onto a high system, which is where you basically pay the same amount, only it gets less and less each year because more of this mortgage. Well, I think you pay the same amount each year, but more of it actually goes towards paying off the mortgage. And I guess as your income increases, your actually mortgage becomes less because of half paying it off and stuff. So, I think that's how it works. But they've turned everyone into slaves basically, and I'm trying to make sense of why this has happened. I mean, maybe it's because more and more people have come into the country that people don't like, or maybe the population has gotten bigger and bigger, so there's more first-timer humans being born as English people, or second-timer humans, or third-timer humans. But if the wealthier, if the global elites are the older ones, the older souls, I'm assuming many of them are, but I can't really tell. I definitely think that Andrew Tate is a younger soul, but he's definitely acting like an older soul. But then again, when I think about some of the things that he says, I really don't agree with it. He thinks that basically the global elite are just trying to destroy the economy so that they can make money off everyone going into poverty. If you turn everyone into slaves and give them high mortgages, where does this money? Why are they poor? They're poor because they're giving all their money to the banks, and if the banks are the ones that are rich, the banks have more control over these people because they can say, if you don't pay us all this money each year, we're going to take your house off you. And because owning a house is basically the only thing that people really want to do, owning a house or having a house to live in, and having jobs to buy stuff, go to places, this is very important. But I think yeah, I think the bank system now owns England because a huge number of people are on rent. I was speaking to someone in the jacuzzi the other day, and he said he was excited about buying a house, and he bought one, and he's got a 75% mortgage on it, so he only owns 25%. He was seeing that as a really good thing. He was talking about how his friend got him onto this, and he's bought 5 houses now. He started 5 years ago, and now he's got 5 houses. I'm thinking, yeah, well, if you've got like loads of houses and you've only started 5 years ago, have you actually paid off any of these mortgages, or are you just earning money and then using that as a deposit to go and buy another house, and take out another gigantic mortgage? Because if there was a housing market crash, and all these houses become half as much as what they should be, because they shouldn't be at the price. Birmingham doesn't have that many jobs, and with the high street completely closing down, like most of the shops are now closed, or they have to have bouncers on them, and well, if you have a bouncer, suddenly you have a huge higher amount of costs to put on these places. So these shops aren't making any money. The economy's falling apart. I know people are going online to buy things, but a lot of people are just thinking, what, I haven't moved house. I don't have the energy to buy more clothes. I've got enough in my cupboard. I don't need this. And they're not buying. When you go to shops and you see things that you like, it's actually in your face, and you think, wow, I don't really need this, but it's there and I like it and I like the price, so I'm going to get it. But when you're online shopping, okay, yeah, you can get addicted and just say, oh, I want something to show up at my door to entertain me that day or something. So you can do that, but because of the postage being about £3, you can't do it with smaller items. If you're buying things online, you have to pay at least 15. They're putting filler in my wall. But yeah, so basically the economy is falling apart, and this guy was saying how he could see that houses had doubled in the last 10 years. He was thinking like my sister. The houses have doubled in the last 10 years, so they're going to double again. This house that he's bought, don't know how much it was, I think it was about he said now you can't buy a house for less than 230, 250, so I'm guessing that he's probably paid around 230, 250. I think he's got a 3-bedroom. These ones are slightly cheaper because I guess Aston, maybe he's bought in a slightly nicer area of Birmingham. But I don't know, this particular area is not hugely bad, but that's only because I'm comparing it against other areas that are really bad in this area, that are kind of walking distance of this area. But anyway, he was saying that he thinks that these houses houses in Birmingham are all going to be worth 400,000. I'm just thinking, how could they be worth 400,000 if our salary is going to be 40,000 a year, and if tax takes away 10 or 8,000 pounds of that, because it's a quarter they charge tax, but I don't think you get charged tax on the first 12,000, so it's only a quarter over the age of 12,000, but that's still about 8,000 a year. And then if you think about car and bills and stuff like that, that gets eaten away very quickly, and then the rest goes on the mortgage. But people are going to be depressed. People are not going to be shopping. The shops are closing down. He was thinking that this might be like London, and okay, London 10 years ago was great, and people still have that memory of London being great, but London is falling apart too. I was seeing some clips about some thugs going into McDonald's and just looking like they're about to just steal anything they could, and that's what Birmingham looks like. But yeah, so if you say that Birmingham's becoming like London, I think you really need to be careful what you're saying, because London's no longer good any longer. Like London's falling apart, Birmingham's falling apart, Manchester's also falling apart, and they're just, I don't know, these swarms of people are coming into the country, and I'm trying to understand, like, why are you not just deporting them? Why are you not just picking them up and saying, you don't belong here, so let's take you away? I mean, maybe it's because you've let so many people in that we now can't tell the difference between those who have been legally coming here and those who are not legally here. Maybe that's what the problem is, and you have to go through lots of sort of paperwork or filing to make sure this person is legally here or legally not here, or if they're on some sort of refugee status. Like, I don't understand. How did you get rid of them 10 years ago? Like, I'm sure you would have just picked them up and took them to another country. Forget human rights. This is our right to have a country that's full of, mostly English people. A country should be mostly putting filler in the cavity walls, so it's going to be a bit of a noise. But yeah, so I'm trying to make sense of it, and I was listening to. He does sound. Andrew Tate does sound like a high developer, but fast developer, because he seems so much more confident and than he did before. Um, yeah, he seems like he's so much more developed than before because he's got a really strong character. But at the same time, I don't think he's really thinking things from the true perspective, because from the true perspective, I don't believe that the global elites, or the older souls, should I say, I do not believe that the older souls want to control and dominate people and they want everyone enslaved because of they dislike the power or something like that. I think that's his mind. I think he's thinking like that. And I do think he's a younger soul, because I think that's the type of typical thing that someone of a younger soul would think. It's all about control, domination, power. I don't care about others. I want to enslave others. He's thinking, I want to enslave others, and therefore I'm assuming that the global elite want to enslave others. Now, is there truth to that though? Because I don't know who the global elite is. If the global elite are people like him, then maybe that is the point. I have to understand that my higher self does things for a reason, but the people who are doing things might be doing things for a completely different reason. So I like analyzing Andrew, because I feel like I don't know who I'm analysing when it comes to the global elite, but I feel like by looking at him, I know he represents the alpha males, and he also represents sexism. So he's try and ignore the sexism part. But yeah, if the global elites are just a bunch of sexist people who just want to control, dominate you, maybe I don't know. I don't know who these people are. So I'm listening to him, and I am learning something from him, because I feel like there might be a group of people who are just like him, who are trying to control and dominate. I mean, this is all going to fall apart when the housing market crashes and when people start going off in the rapture. So I am aware that there are probably a big group of people who are all six-lifers, who are all, maybe they've gone through abuse, maybe they've gone through slavery in their past life. I mean, there was a lot of slavery in the past. Black slavery was everywhere, and these people are not going to be black right now because they've died, they've got a new body, they could be any age or any race or anything like that. And slavery has existed all over the world. It even exists now. So, I think a person becomes a fast developer when they start fearing others, when they start, feeling like they need to get into power. He has a strong need to want to get into power and to show his sort of dominance and alpha male kind of attitude. And I know why they do that is because of, the fear of going back into poverty and being a slave to others is so bad that they think, no, I need to get on top. I don't have that same drive. I do not have a need to control others or dominate others. And I feel like that's just because I don't care enough, and he does care enough. And I think that he's still living with the mindset of, oh, what happens if they try and enslave me? Well, I have to get above them, and I have to enslave them too. And if I enslave them because they're too poor to attack me, then they can't attack me because they don't have enough money. If I own their house, or if I'm the banker that owns the 75% of their house, they're not going to do anything to upset me. Why? Because I'm going to come in and I'm going to repossess the house, providing you don't pay the if you don't pay the mortgage rent, the high mortgages, I don't know, £2,000 a month or whatever, if you don't pay that, we're going to wait 3 months, see if you pay it or not. And if you don't pay it, well, we're going to repossess the house, we're going to sell it, probably sell it for 100,000 less than what you paid for. You'll find that your 25% is completely gone because there's nothing left of that. We'll get our money back, we'll be fine, you won't be. So there is this kind of fear of control, and the bankers have learnt to control everyone in England because of these high mortgages. But because of these high mortgages and people feeling they need to have it, all houses have gone up. Now, this is good for the people who own houses because their houses are worth a lot more, but it's not, because if they wanted to move house and buy somewhere else, again, they would have to pay a high mortgage or a high price. Or if they wanted to upscale, if they want to go from a 2-bedroom house to a 5-bedroom house, they would have to probably take out a giant mortgage. And therefore they too would find themselves and would also have to sell their property and capital gains. If a property has gone up huge amounts in the last 10 years since they last bought it, there's going to be a much higher amount of capital gains tax on it, and they might find themselves having to take out a bigger mortgage than they were expecting. So there is some sort of enslavement gone, and I don't know who's doing the enslavery. So if it is people like Andrew Tate who are doing the enslavery, then I feel like I need to listen to him, because this might be the truth. If, however, there is another reason though why the global elites might have chosen to turn everyone into slaves, maybe it's because they've just had bad experiences with people. Maybe people are not treating them nicely, or there are some terrible people in the world. You know, I've seen mad people. I've seen people who look dangerous, people who act like they're smart. You know, there are people like Andrew Tate, actually. There's people who act like they're really smart when really they are actually just out for themselves. And I do sense that about Andrew Tate. You know, on one hand, I do like him, and I feel like I can learn from him, and that's what angels are for. They're there so you can learn from them. So I feel like I can learn a lot from him. You know, he doesn't want me to enslave him. He would much rather become higher than me, richer than me, wealthier than me, so he can enslave me. You know, that's the kind of attitude that he has, and this is a typical kind of attitude that someone of a sixth life person would have. Like an older person, I feel, would be more like, you know what, if I do want to enslave you, it's only because I want to do the right thing, and I don't think you will do the right thing. You know, if you have a tiny lizard and a big dog, you know, that big dog might want that lizard to be its friend, and it might, you know, do the right things, treat it nicely, be kind. But if it was the other way around, and that lizard was like a crocodile and the dog was now just like a small puppy, you know, that crocodile would eat that puppy. You know, it wouldn't treat it in the same standards. And so, you know, if you want to be a master because you know that you can look after the puppy or the lizard, if you want to be a big dog because you know that you could look after the lizard and you could teach the lizards good things, and if you can, you know, teach the people to be kind and enjoy humor and stuff like that, you know, that's a good reason to want to be in leadership. And if the reason why these banks have got all this power is because they are seeing that the creatures that are being grown in the country are more like lizards rather than dogs or puppies. You know, if you can see that there's danger growing, you know, you might feel a need to want to have all these gigantic mortgages. That way, if there is a housing market crash and these people find that they just can't, you know, pay off their mortgage because the mortgage is now higher than what the actual, you know, they could buy a newer house or a bigger house or a better house for even less than what their mortgage rate is. You know, they'll have to sell, but yeah, they'll pay off the mortgage, they'll find they've got nothing, so they'll have to take out a new mortgage. It's probably less than the original mortgage, you know, but they might, you know, if the housing market crashes, people might say, you know, give up on this house, pay off the mortgage, just take out the £10,000 that I have and then use that as a deposit. But if there's going to be some sort of, I don't know how bad the housing market crash is going to be, but the bankers are going to be the ones that, the people who own the mortgages are going to be the ones that benefit the most. That will be for certain, because and I think, you know, like there was a thing where people were standing up every time a bell rung. All the people stood up, and then they got someone who wasn't told to stand up when the bell, but she was just looking at all the other people stand up, and then when the bell rang again, then they sat down. When the bell rang again, they all sat down. And so even when all those people left, one by one those people left, but the person who was not told to do this still did it. Even when they all left, she was still doing it. So she'd seen what the routine was, and then she just started copying the routine. And that's kind of another thing that I think has happened to England. Like, a lot of people have started taking bigger and bigger mortgages out. This has increased the housing market. So the housing market has not gone up because the houses are worth more. It's only gone up because more and more people have wanted to buy a house, and they thought, right, well, I took out a £50,000 mortgage last time, but I want another house. I'm going to take out a £100,000 mortgage, and then the house market goes up again, and let's take out a £200,000 loan. So people are getting higher, bigger and bigger mortgages. This has become the trend. Getting a mortgage, borrowing money has just become kind of part of a trend, and now everyone sees that it's safe because the housing market doubled. You know, if you wanted to pay off the mortgage, you just need to sell the house. You can use that to pay off the mortgage. And I don't even know if capital gains really accounts. Do you actually pay capital gains? If you've got a house and then you bought it for 250,000 and you had a £200,000 mortgage, but then over 10 years it doubled to become, you know, 400,000, but you've still got the sort of 200 or 180,000. It'll be less because you would have paid it off. You would have paid off some of that in that time. But you know, if it's now 150, do you take that out and only charge capital gains on the money that do you only charge capital gains on the money that wasn't included in the mortgage? Because I don't really know how that works, because technically if you haven't made that much money, because technically you had to pay off the mortgage, you know, maybe the capital gains is maybe it'll be less because you haven't actually made that much money. But the bankers, do they pay the capital gains? If they have a mortgage on a property and it's tripled in 10 years, do they get their money back, but do they have to pay capital gains because of the house? I don't know how. I don't know the details about that, but I know that the bankers are just getting richer and richer, and they're just making this money, taking the money that they're making, and then using it to give out mortgages. And now you've invited a bunch of foreigners into the country, so the whole country now is like, I think 40%, maybe even less, 35% English or something. People born in England, people who born in England whose parents were also born in England, I think is just getting less and less. So England is getting more and more poor. People are taking out more and more mortgages. Are the elites, are the bankers doing this because they are getting greedy and they just want to control and dominate? Or are they doing it because they realise that actually there's something wrong with the people in England, and they're seeing them as more like lizards rather than puppies, and they're thinking, we need this control. Why? Because we don't trust these people. I don't know. Andrew Tate seems to think that the bankers are enslaving people because they don't want them to be rich. They don't want them to be happy. They don't want them to be nice. I mean, that's probably how he's thinking. I don't want you to be happy. You didn't make me happy, so I don't want to make you happy. Maybe that's what he's thinking, but I don't think most people think that way, because I think most older souls do actually want a world that's nice, a world that works, a world where everyone's friendly, a world where people are happy. I want to live in a world where everyone's happy, and where but yeah, there also seems to be a lot of people in the Home Office who want to make everyone happy, but I think what they really want to do is take third worlders who are unhappy and bring them into this country and make them happy here. But you don't realise by taking third worlders from another country into this country, you're actually going to turn this country into a third world country, because these third worlders they have bad principles, that they are the very younger souls, and they're just going to drag the country down in their immoral ways, and start thinking that Sharia law is good, and that we need to have more mosques here, and we need to have Sharia law courts. Why? Because my view is just as important as your view, even though my views are completely backwards and inverted. But if you're a fourth lifer, you might actually just be like, I want everyone to be happy. These people are coming from a war-torn country. We need to help them. And the reason why it's war-torn is because people like that are in there. They're the ones that are pissing off people, making them want to start wars, causing problems, and these wars are happening. And what, you're going to just take them in and just say, oh no, they're nice people. They're the ones that are escaping from war. Yeah, or maybe the reason why war was caused by them was because they were there, and now they're here. That's going to make us want to if you don't understand why war happens, if you're living in having a horrible upbringing, if you can't walk down the streets without feeling like you're going to be raped, if you feel like you're going to be walked without being attacked, if you feel like you can't walk down the streets without being attacked, this is going to make you hate others, and this is going to make you want to go to war. And if the reason why these countries are full of people who are dangerous, they're dangerous because they're looking at all the other people who are dangerous, and therefore you can't just say, oh, these are the nice ones, we're going to help them, we're going to make them happy, because the older ones are going to look at them and think actually they're a danger to us, and then you're going to start civil war. And that's basically what's happened. Is it by design? Is it purposely done? I don't know, but I feel like too many people are thinking, I'm going to trust that view even if they shouldn't. I'm learning a lot from Andrew Tate, but I feel like I'm putting myself into a sort of younger mindset. But then again, there are a lot of people who are like that and have that. I want to control, not because I want to do the right thing and make you happy. I want to control you because I want to make you as happy as I am, and because I'm not happy, I want to make you unhappy. And I feel like that's the problem with him. He does seem to have this. But to be honest, though, he might just be doing this because he wants me, because he knows. He might know. Does he know about me? Does he know that I'm watching these videos? Does he know that I'm learning from him? I like putting myself in people's minds, and I can't do that unless I know what their opinions are. So is he saying all the things that he's saying so that I can try and understand this sort of the younger alpha male? I think he doesn't want to believe that he's a younger alpha male. He wants to believe that he's an older soul. He wants to believe that he's intelligent. He wants to believe that he's what he says is right and correct, and maybe it is. There might be some truth into it, because I don't know who this global elite is. But I know the older souls genuinely just want a nice town, a nice place. Maybe that's what they've done. Maybe all the bankers have just said, right, we're going to choose this place. There's, what's it, Ascana or something? A-S, Anna? there's a place, I don't know what that is, but maybe they just bought up a bunch of land and said, right, this is going to be our nice city. We're going to have nice houses, nice this, and we're going to make a nice community here, and then we're just going to fuck the world. Like, maybe that's what's happening, because I something really bad is going on in Europe right now. The decline is obvious, noticeable, massive, and I'm wondering if that's what they're doing, because that's what I want to do. I'm thinking about what I want to do. I am an older, well, technically I'm a younger soul, because I've only had 4 lives, or 3 lives. No, 3 lives. I've had 3 lives. One, Analia, well, she was 20. She died when she was 21. Does that really count? And the other one was a cave woman, so I don't even think that counts. So really, this is kind of my first life. Well, Leah and me are the first lives, because if the count has only been happening for the last 6 years, then Darla shouldn't count. She had nothing. Didn't even have a house or language or anything, so I can't even count that as a proper life. So basically, this is kind of my second life, Leah and me. But yeah, I know that what I would want. I'm a mature soul. I'm a god that's millions of years old, and I've done this loads of times. So I know I want a nice place to live, where I can think that I'm living in a nice world, and that's probably what the older souls want. Just a nice place, nice community, bring all the nice people, have some sort of test, allow you to find out who, I don't know, even if I have children, my children, if I just took all the wiser, nicer people who have, you know, been reborn, had a nice little village somewhere, you know, they're not... The world, I don't care about the world. So maybe that's what's happened. They've stopped controlling the world, and they thought, you know what, we're just going to find a nice place to live and let the younger souls, people like Andrew Tate, take over. Maybe that's what's happened. I'm wondering if that's what's happened. The reason why Europe is falling apart is because the ones who were controlling it have now just bought a little village somewhere, and then now people like Andrew Tate are the 6 lifer souls are, or the 7 lifers. I think Keir Starmer was a... But that's what actually happened. I mean, I thought the other one was a 12th lifer, and Keir Starmer was an 8 lifer. So it's like the 12th lifers might have just said, right, we're going to live here, and then the 8 lifers are think, right, we're going to take over, and we're going to start making the decisions. But yeah, really, I think the 6 lifers are the ones that are taking over, because they're the ones that feel like, no, I don't want to be in slavery. They're the ones who're feeling like Andrew Tate. I don't want to be in slavery. I need to be dominant. I need to be powerful. I need to be a high flyer, or a more advanced soul, a soul that you know, that what's that word? Fast developer. I need to be a fast developer. Yeah, when people have this desire to be a fast developer, that's when they kind of turn into alpha males. But then again, if the reason why they're doing it is to enslave everyone else, you know, and so they could make them unhappy because they themselves are unhappy, then that's yeah, he's given me a lot to think about.